So last week we looked at Kuwait, and we looked at a number of different sites in that Arab Gulf state. And tonight we're going to look at Qatar, Qatar. Well, some people say Qatar, but it's Qatar, Qatar. So it's, of course, a country in the Middle East. It occupies a peninsula, which I was going to show you, but you can go home and look it up, on the northeastern coast of the Arabian Peninsula, and it shares its sole land border with Saudi Arabia. And the rest of it is then surrounded by the Persian Gulf. So if you look at the map, Qatar sort of sticks out into the Persian Gulf, and to the east is Saudi Arabia. There's also something known as the Gulf of Bahrain. Bahrain it's one of the Gulf states, but we're not covering that. It's a small little island that sits just off the coast of Qatar, and it's separated by what is called the Straits of Bahrain. So most of Qatar is made up of flat, low-lying desert, and for centuries was nothing but territory for Bedouin tribes. The fact that you can see cities like Doha with these magnificent buildings, if you'd have gone back 100, 150 years, you'd say, no. How did that happen? Yeah, so for most of the time, it was just a low-lying desert. Today, it's got about 2.5 million inhabitants. The vast majority live in Doha, which is the capital. Like Kuwait, you might remember this from last time, only about 25 to 30% of the population are citizens. The rest are foreign workers that are brought in. And if you, in terms of Qatar, most of those come from South Asia, India and Nepal. And if you ever go to these countries, you'll notice those workers doing construction, foreign workers. Hotels, restaurants, the citizens don't work, more or less, because of the, just like in Kuwait, the wealth that is there from the oil. It's been actually, for a number of years, there was a big issue in Qatar about the treatment of these foreign workers. It's apparently been made better as of November of 22, because the International Labor Organization was starting to make complaints that these foreign workers were really being sort of, exploited. It might be the best word. Their living conditions were nowhere near what the living conditions were, and still aren't, but apparently they're much better. So it's a semi-constitutional monarchy. Most of these Gulf states are very similar in their political setup. And the head is known, can you remember from last week? What's the monarch called? What's the title? Emir, E-M-I-R. And he's the head of state. And then he appoints a prime minister who is head of government. So all these states have quasi-parliamentary forms of government. I say quasi because the emir still holds a great deal of power over them. There is a council known as the Shura Council. It's got 45 members. It's elected by the citizens, or at least 30 are elected, and 15 are then appointed by the emir, and they serve 4-year terms. Now, it's sort of an advisory council. It technically can pass laws, et cetera, but how it really works in practice is it advises the emir. Because if the emir really doesn't like what the advice is, he doesn't have to follow it. So it has no authority over defense. This is the council. Security, economic or investment policies. That's always left just to the emir. So it is a monarchy with a parliament, I call it quasi-parliamentary structure. Official religion should be no problem. Buddhism, Islam, Sunni Islam. Most of these Arab Gulf states are Sunnis. I think in Qatar it's about 90-10. 90 Sunni, 10 Shia. And Shia are often identified with Iraq. And there have been conflicts between Iraq and these Gulf states historically. So the Shia are always looked at a little bit in a suspected manner because they identify often with the Shia shrines in Iraq. But it's 90% Sunni. Official language, again, just like in Kuwait, Arabic, that's what's used, but English is used largely for business, trade, etc. So anyone educated in Qatar is going to know not only Arabic, but they're going to know English. They're going to know English. Education is compulsory, free, from 6 to 16, and most citizens go further than that. So because of the wealth of the country, they can provide great educational opportunities, health care, all that is taken care of for the citizens. Actually, if you want a comparison, it's almost like the ancient Greek states. The ancient Greeks used to, like Athens, would have its citizens, and then it would have its others. And those others would provide the work. And it's really that notion kind of that creates the idea of slavery. What is slavery really all about? Free labor. It's free labor. Now, these people are paid, but it's not a great salary. But why do people take those jobs? They need it back in India. They come from India and they send 3/4 of that back. In Nepal, it's much of the economy, in fact, is based on foreign workers sending back money to the families. And I guess you've been noticing what's been happening in Nepal lately. It looks like there's a new prime minister. It's a female. They're supposedly going to have elections next March. I'm supposed to go in February, so we're sort of yes.
A large percentage of the population are foreign workers. I'm sure they have families. Do those children get educated also?
The families don't come. It's just the men. Families are back in Nepal, back in India. Yeah, it's just the men. They come, they make the money, they send so much back. Yeah, now there are some, but by and large, it's just the men who come and work. Okay, so let's turn to some history. Okay, especially without any photos for the moment. Don't try and remember most of this. So we're going to go back to the 16th century. The beginning of the 16th century, when Qatar was just desert, nothing. But it was ruled by what was known as the Kingdom of Ormuz, O-R-M-U-S, which controlled most of that area, even up in sometimes Bahrain. It had originated in the 11th century as a dependency of one of the subgroups of the Mongol dynasty. Remember, the Mongols had come down in, conquered Iran, Iraq, and so they had offshoots, and this Ormuz had been originally related to the Mongols. Then in 1507, the Portuguese arrive. Now you're going to see a similar pattern from last time, because most of these Gulf states have a similar colonial history. So the Portuguese arrive, and that's because the Ormuzian fleet was more or less destroyed by Alfonso de Albuquerque. I don't know from which we get Albuquerque. A great Portuguese general, seaman. He's able to conquer Ormuz, and then the Portuguese put fortresses all along that coastline. Now, why are they doing that? What do they want to control? They want to control the waterways. That is where trade is coming from, all the way from India up through, and so they control that. But by 1550, the Portuguese influence had started to wane, mainly because of problems at home. But in any case, who next steps in? The Ottomans. Where are the Ottomans based? In what is today Turkey. Okay, and that area is very important to the Ottomans. So the Ottomans are able to control the area for a while. And then when the Ottomans are having their own internal problem, this group known as the Bani Khalid, which I think we talked about last time, a very powerful tribe, Arab tribe, moves into the area and takes control. And they are able to control the area for quite a while. Then at the middle of the 18th century, another tribe comes in, and they're able to wrestle this away from. So for a long time after this, it's tribal warfare going on. Classical Arabian culture is tribal. One of the main things that Islam did, which is really kind of amazing to most historians, were able to unite so many of those tribes. They were able to bring things together. Okay, this was the other, the Al-Khalifa come in, and they're able to, they migrate from Kuwait. Okay, and by this time the Bani Khalid were becoming very weak, and Britain starts to see the situation, the English, and they're able to step in. But the Khalifa, this is an important point, they're able to establish this place called Al-Zubarah. If that's Qatar, do you see where it is? It's at the far northern point. And we'll see at the end, it's an archaeological site now. But for a long time, that was a thriving fort, a thriving area because, well, look where it is. Yeah. Okay, so it's able to, it's 65 miles from Doha. And it became a safe haven for merchants because they didn't have to pay any taxes. So it was whoever could control this, the merchant. But then, well, there's the fort, and we'll see it again later. This gentleman appears. This is the Wahhabis. Has anyone heard of the Wahhabis? Okay. The Wahhabis are fundamentalist Muslims, and they follow the teachings of this gentleman, Ibn al-Wahhab. By this time, Wahhab was feeling that Islam had become what we might call idolatrous in nature. He wanted to get back to pure Islam. So this was a purification movement. You often find this in all religions periodically. We say the Puritans, right? What were the Puritans about? Getting back to the purity. Well, Al-Wahhab does that. And his forces are able to conquer Zubarah for a period of time. While we won't be talking about this today, but where he really becomes important, he later converts al-Saud. And that's why Saudi Arabia is Wahhabi, even to today. In fact, they were so pure that they destroyed Muhammad's house. Why? Because people were using it as a shrine. And they thought, no, you're only supposed to worship Allah. You don't worship shrines, you don't have Sufi saints, you don't have any of that. You get rid of it. So in any case, they're able to establish control, but then they are attacked by the Ottomans and the Egyptians, and they're finally driven out. But they go back into Saudi Arabia and then are later able to convert Ibn Saud, and that's why you get Saudi Arabia, and it today is very conservative religiously. So in 1811, the Wahhabi emir reduced his garrisons and left, and now the British become very interested. It's the war. because there's disputes going on between these tribes over control, and the British love that. Same thing in India, the various princely states fighting one another. And then they go in and they will support one group over the other, offer them protection, offer them military support, and then they get into the middle of the political game. And so this is what starts to happen in this area. And Doha is virtually destroyed during these conflicts. Now, Doha back then was not the Doha you saw now. It was more or less just a village. So the British then signed a treaty with this gentleman, Muhammad ibn Thani. They will support his rule, and so he's protected under them. Now, what do they get out of it? All sorts of trading rights. As long as they can control the trade, the British are happy. So this gives Britain basically control of what is Qatar at the time, and it became part of the imperial policy. It was called divide and conquer. You ever heard? You get the various groups to oppose one another, then you can manipulate. So let's move up to 1916, and they signed this Treaty of Protection. That's with the Ibn Thani. And this Muhammad ibn Thani, that family will rule Qatar right from then on. So they sign a treaty. Britain controls all foreign policy. That's part of the treaty. They also get economic benefits when we say protection, what it really means is that the emir's family is going to be supported by the British. So the protection isn't so much for Qatar as it is for the emir. Okay, so 1935, Qatar signed a concession agreement with what was then known as the Iraq Petroleum Company. That company had been founded in 1925, had a virtual monopoly on all oil exploration and production in Iraq. It was jointly owned by the world's largest oil companies, English, French, and American, with headquarters in London. By this time, it's recognized that there is oil there, so they're starting to sign agreements that if oil is found and we can get it out of the ground, we get so much and you get so much, etc. And I'll tell you, who do you think got the most? The Iraqi petroleum. 4 years later, in 1939, oil is finally discovered in Qatar, although it's not recovered commercially until 1949. So it took about 10 years to get that oil out of the ground and get it going. So by 1968, the sun is starting to set on the British Empire, and they announced they're leaving the Gulf. And so Qatar gets its independence September 3rd, 1971. So they've been an independent state since 1971. That same month, they became a member of the Arab League, all the Arab countries. Why was there an Arab League? Well, they want to support one another, so they joined, and member of the UN. So. Now, the story isn't quite over. In February of 72, this Sheikh Khalifa, who's from this family, became the Emir of Qatar. But he did it by seizing power from his cousin, and there is a family warfare going on. Why? What's at issue here? Lots of money. Lots of money, lots of oil. So it was solved by a protracted lawsuit between father and son. Between father and son over the ownership of billions of dollars of oil revenues. It was finally settled out of court. Like it was mentioned, the U.S. now, in 1990s, Qatar agreed to permit U.S. military forces, 1990, to place equipment in a number of sites throughout the country, granted them use of Qatari airstrips, especially during U.S. operations in Afghanistan in 2001. Remember, there was 9/11, and then the Bush administration decided to go into Afghanistan to try and find Osama bin Laden. So they needed airstrip, and so Qatar provided that for them. And there is this big base which has 10,000 U.S. personnel and over 100 aircraft. It's the home of the 379th Air Expeditionary Wing. And yes, and in these countries, these are little separate entities within countries. You know, they're separate as well. It's pretty much you live on the base. You live on the base. You don't mingle. Okay. They also have UK Royal Air Force units there. So it's a major military spot. You can see how it would be a handy place given its location. You may remember in June of this year, it was targeted by Iran missiles. Remember when the Israelis bombed Iran and Iran responded, and some missiles came in and hit the base. I don't think anyone was killed, but do you remember hearing that? They sent missiles towards Israel, most of which were knocked down, but they also sent them at the U.S. base. Why? Because they felt they had to do something because the U.S. was supporting Israel. In any case, their foreign policy has been one of mediation. They've tried to be the mediators for various groups throughout the Middle East. For example, this, for a time, and it's still not quite clear, but Hamas' political leadership in exile was in Qatar. See, that was the political leadership that was in exile. Interestingly, you know how that came about? There was a request from Washington originally to establish indirect lines of communication. So the U.S. government actually wanted Qatar to provide this link so that they could have communications with Hamas. It's claimed that these Hamas negotiators are no longer there. But I don't think Israel believes that, because you saw what happened last week. Yeah, they bombed. They didn't get any of the Hamas leaders. But again, they're sending out this notion. Okay, in terms of culture, it's an interesting blend between the old Bedouin influences, that's the old Bedouins were the nomads, and modern developments. So they put a lot of money into culture. So that will get us to our tour. All right. The Qatar Cultural Village. Now notice it's spelled with a K, and that's because that's how it's presented in all their websites, and I'm not quite sure why. I mean, you can see you could transliterate the Arabic letter into either a Q or a K because it's both Ka. But so this is something known as the Qatar Cultural Village, and it's a popular cultural center. It's sort of artificial. I mean, it's been built to demonstrate. It isn't something that naturally grew out of the area. The government has put a lot of money into this because when tourists come, This is where they want to present their culture in this what is called this cultural village. It's over 1 million square meters, so it's large. It's large. You can, if I had my pointer, you can see, and it's away from the center of the city, so it's been built out here in this area, away. I think it's in the southern part. So let's take a few views. This is. It also has an amphitheater. Yeah. But if you want to go inside, they also have an opera house. And a nice movie theater. And if you like the beach, you can go to the beach. It has a maritime, and a shopping mall, sorry, there's always a shopping mall. It has, and restaurants and cafes, and it's built for tourists, let's face it. I went to something similar, and we'll see this next week in Dubai, and it has a little bit of an artificial feeling to it, because it's artificial. I mean, they try and show you the cultural aspects, but the buildings themselves, they kind of, in any case, there is this maritime museum, which it shows its heritage. This was opened in 2022, because one of the big industries, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, as well as trade, was pearls. There was a lot of pearling that was going on, large pearling history. And these are the sorts of boats that would go out and they would get the pearls. And you can see all the sorts of tools, etc., that they used. There's also this interesting model of Doha. Now, Jean, you might know this. When we were in Paris, we went to some museum that had a model somewhat like this, I think, of Paris. You know, where you can stand and look and see.
It's in the Orsay, you could walk over it.
Yes, yeah, okay, that's where it is. Yeah, well, this is, they've done something similar here for Doha. Does anyone, when you were young, did you collect postage stamps? Anybody? Well, they've got an Arab postal stamp museum in the village. Apparently some very rare and old stamps. That gives you a good idea of what traditional dress is like for men.
Is that common to see that on the street?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what you would wear on the street. That's normal wear. Okay. There's also a mosque with just beautiful tile work. I wish these could be larger. I wish I had a larger screen.
So is this pretty new also?
Yeah, these are all within the last 20, 30 years. At least since the time that oil revenue came in and they could afford to do these sorts of things. What's interesting about this minaret, most minarets with mosques are attached to the mosques. This one is separate. But I don't know, can you get a little bit of a feel for the beautiful tile work on that? Why is it doing that, Jerry?
No, it's the computer.
It's the computer, okay. There's the interior. Then there's this thing called Pearl Island. See it in the middle there? That's a man-made island. It's located in its very prestigious, what is known as the West Bay. It features a Mediterranean-style marina, and all those are condos, residential condominiums.
Owned by citizens. Are they owned by citizens?
Yeah, oh yeah, you don't find any foreign workers, no. Foreign workers will be in their own area of town. Okay. Yeah, this is where the restaurants, the marina, that sort of life that the luxury can provide. It's sometimes called the Arabian Riviera. So does that give you a clue?
And the water is very clean.
Yeah, clean, clear. There's also a cooling plant. Now this is interesting. Let me tell you about this cooling plant. It is a centralized facility that produces chilled water and distributes it through insulated underground pipes to all the buildings. Offices, residents, malls, stadiums, universities. You don't have air conditioning. You have cold water running through pipes in your walls. And it's apparently considered much more efficient and cheaper than air conditioning. Yeah. Yeah, so.
But it's not salt water.
So is it salt water?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Or maybe they filter it or something.
Yeah, I'm sure. I just found it fascinating. I didn't know such things existed. You know. So whatever it is, that's the part that does it. Then there's what is known as Aspire Park, which is in the southern part of Doha. It's Doha's biggest park. This is where families go for picnics, outdoor gatherings, etc., etc. It has a lake, the only lake in Qatar. It's an artificial lake. Yeah. All sorts of trees, and yeah, it's a place where people just go to relax, and then it's known for this tower, known strangely enough as the Aspire Tower. 980-foot tall skyscraper hotel. It's a hotel. Yeah. It's the towers we saw before were watered. No, this is a hotel. Not only a hotel, it's a 5-star hotel, by the way. Some say 6. Sports museum, health club, swimming pool, and a revolving restaurant, which I guess became the thing to have. But here's a little better picture of it during the day and during night. So right next door to this tower is the Khalifa International Stadium. And it's got a running track and a grass pitch. What is played on that pitch? Football, soccer. Yes, soccer. The stadium opened in 1976, and it's owned by the Qatar Football Association, and it's the home ground for the Qatar men's national team. Seats about 45,000. The advent of soccer in Qatar goes back to 1948 with the arrival of oil companies. The Brits brought their soccer with them. It became very popular. It's got a national football club established in 1950, and if any of you are soccer fans, you'll remember that the World Cup was held here in 2022. Do we have soccer? Does anyone know who that gentleman is on the right? Messi, yes. That is Mr. Soccer, the great Lionel Messi. He's now playing in the U.S., by the way. I think he plays for some team in Florida, right? Yeah. Well, he hit the end of his. This is like Beckham. Beckham played for LA for a while. These great soccer stars at the end of their days come and play here. But yeah, it was the World Cup was held there in 2022. 32 teams from around the world. There was some consideration, the weather there and the heat, but they went ahead and apparently it was pretty successful. It's not the Leaning Tower. What do you think that is? It's a state-of-the-art children's museum. Yeah, it looks like it's about to fall over. It opened in 2021 and has become very popular for families, children of all ages. It's really an educational institution. It's designed to inspire creativity, curiosity, imagination. It has all sorts of exhibits. I think it has 45 exhibits. Most of these exhibits, you don't just come in and look at them. They're interactive. They're interactive exhibits. I don't know. I guess I should ask ChatGPT. Yeah, it's a planetarium with all sorts of all these boxes down there, things kids can do. I imagine go to Pluto or something like that. Equestrianism, horses, very, very big thing in Qatar. In 1971, the al-Thani family, the Emir's family, decided to invest lots of money to make Qatar one of the major players in horse racing in the world. And as a result, we have the Qatar Racing and Equestrian Club, established in 1975. It's charged with developing purebred Arabians for racing events, shows, and for breeding. It's a breeding center. I kind of wish Chris was here tonight. When she was growing up, she had an Arabian. Yeah, Al-Arab was his name. There's also a famous racetrack there, the Al Rayyan Racecourse. Can you tell me something? How many people go to Santa Anita? Do the horses run that way?
No, the other direction.
Yeah. So in this race, they run, that would be clockwise. I don't know exactly, and it may be, I think my wife told me sometimes the turf track is one direction and the other track is the other. I'm not an expert on horse racing. I did go to Santa Anita when I was at UC Santa Barbara. You want to hear a story? My friend said, let's go down and watch the horse race. So we took the bus all the way down. We got down there, and then we ran out of money. But it took me about an hour to find enough coins on the floor to pick them up and get bus tickets back. Everywhere, it was like an Easter egg hunt. Anyway, that's sort of personal story. Okay. So let's go to the Museum of Islamic Art. And there it is. You can see it's all lit up there, sitting out on the, it's located on one end of this 4.3-mile promenade that sticks out into the water. It's built on an island. It's an artificial peninsula. And you'll see a lot of this goes on in Dubai as well. It's called land reclamation. They go out and they dig up from under the water, and then they build these areas. It occupies 480,000 square feet. It's got 5 floors, and then there's this central courtyard which connects it to its educational wing. So you can see there's the modernity of, that's the entrance. That's the interior. And it has all sorts of exhibits and great collection. Most of its collection represents Islamic art, because it's collected art from 3 continents over 1,400 years. There's metalwork, ceramics, jewelry, woodwork, and one of the world's most complete collection of artifacts from Spain, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, from all over the Islamic world. So we can see a few things. When we think of knights, we often think of European knights, but there were Arabian knights. Not this K-N-I-G-H-T-S, but there was also Arabian knights. Again, I wish you could see that up close. It's ceramic. It's just gorgeous. What's that? It could either be used as a carpet or a wall hanging. And the work on it is just intricate. The knots. You can tell that the way you know how good a Persian or a Middle Eastern carpet is how many knots there are per square inch. And it has this wonderful collection of ancient manuscripts. This manuscript, you can see it's been recovered. It's partial. There's a more modern, with the illustrations. What do you call those, Gene, from the illuminations that when you were talking? Illuminated manuscript, yeah. And then there's this, the Blue Qur'an, and it's one of it's written in what is known as Kufic script. When you look at Arabic, modern Arabic, it doesn't look like that, does it? This is one of the earliest forms of Arabic script. It's called Kufic. So it's very old. No one really knows where it originated or the exact dating on it. It's believed to be probably 9th century. From either Tunisia or Cordoba, Spain. That's what it's believed to be from. And it's on sort of gold leaf on this blue indigo colored parchment. It's gorgeous. I've seen pages of it anywhere you go. In Tunisia, I was able to see a page of this. So it's held all over the world, different pages of it.
The previous manuscripts, were they manuscripts of the Qur'an?
Various things. Let's go back to the manuscripts. This probably isn't Qur'an. You don't usually find Qur'an with illumination. That would be considered idolatry. It's a famous text of some sort. And it has its modern restaurant. I think it is French. Let me see, what is it? I thought I had it here. French Mediterranean cuisine is what they call it. Is there such a thing, Gene? I don't know. Okay. Do you remember what a souk is? It's a marketplace. This is the souk waqif, which in Arabic means the standing market. It sells it sells everything. You name it. It's also the home now to restaurants, to hookah lounges. The original building went back to the 19th century. But, and this was a place where Bedouins and locals would meet to trade. So it doesn't, the original building didn't look like that because the original building burnt down in 2003. It was a major fire. And the government decided to restore it. So when you say a souk, it's sort of within, it's the more traditional type of marketplace, but the building itself is modern. And that's what it looks like inside. With all these small offshoots from the main, you have your main drag, as it were, within all these offshoots with different types of goods in them. This guy's selling falcons. And there's, if you want to have the old hookah pipe, you can do that as well. Very traditional way of tobacco, and it's with a water pipe. Sometimes other things. Okay, then there's the Qatar National Library. There was plans for a new library in 2012, and it was finally finished, I think, in 2018. It's supposed to serve three purposes. One, a national library. Two, a research-level university library. And then a central metropolitan public library for everyone's use. So it was supposed to be to serve all three purposes. That's the interior. You ever been in a library like that? Books. Does everyone know what a book is? There will be, probably not too long from now, you're going to ask kids what a book is, and they're not going to know. And it serves as a sort of a community center. This is a gathering there. There's some sort of show going on. So it's supposed to be research plus public use. Then there's this interesting museum. It's called the Sheikh Faisal Museum. It was opened in 1988, and it was built by the Al-Thani family, who rules Qatar. It's 600,000 square yards. It was built over an old fort courtyard. And again, like most of these museums, they have artifacts, all sorts of cultural artifacts. 15 halls, 15,000 artifacts, Islamic art, vehicles, old cars. Why would they have who collected the old cars? The Al-Thani family, the Emir. He loved cars. In any case, let's just take a look at some of the things. There's your carpet collection. There are the cars. He liked cars, or they liked cars. Okay, so you can't go to Qatar without going here. This is the Al-Shahaniya track. It's an hour away from Doha. It's not for horses. What do you think it's for? Race cars? No. Dogs? No. Camels. Camel racing. Camel racing in this region goes way back. Here we see sort of an old photograph of not a photograph, a drawing of a camel race. They originated apparently at weddings. So next time you are hosting a wedding, if that happens for your kids or whatever, you can have a camel race. Yeah.
Rent a camel.
And so it's become a very, very popular sport. And here's the camels. Now, originally, it's a multi-million-dollar business. People from all over the Middle East and other parts of the world come to these camel races. First race took place in 1973, and there were 300 camels in a variety of races. Now, originally, who rode these things? Children. Why? Because they're light. Jockeys tend to be, right? But they had, so they used children. But there was a lot of complaint, international condemnation that these kids were sort of being abused. And so in 2007, the government mandated that all camel races would be directed by robotic jockeys. In fact, if you go back, do you see those? You can see them now on the top of the camels there. It's AI, right? AI, robotic jockeys.
They raise these camels
Yeah, just like people raise horses. But yeah, you don't just grab any old camel out there, because there's lots of money. I mean, these big money. Yeah.
What was the distance of the race?
I don't know, but I'll try and find out.
Longer distance.
Yeah. Okay, the last place we're going to visit, and then we'll get out of here. Remember Al-Zubarah? Okay, let's just go there briefly and look at some of this. Is a World Heritage archaeological site now. That used to be a thriving town, center of sort of world commerce at one point, because it controlled the Gulf there. And you can see that these are the ramps. They're trying to. What happened was, over a long time, sand covered over all these ruins, and they're starting to now dig that sand away and find all these ruins. And it's really known for this fort. This is the one, and we saw a picture of this earlier. It's been remodeled to some degree.
And what was the dating?
This was in the 18th century, 17th, when Zubarah was really, they had free trade going on up there, and this is where the Wahhabis came in and took it, and there was warfare over this. Well, you can see this was a very vital spot. You wanted to control this. Now, this is interesting. This is the fort well. And I said, well, where's the water? The thing to realize that in these desert areas, there's lots of underground water. That's what an oasis is. You'll see the middle of the desert, and suddenly all these palm trees and date trees. It's because there's a lot of underground water. And so apparently it was like 20, that well was 20 feet under the fort. And it still draws water. And then they have all sorts of displays. And then finally, there's this this was a fishing village, which wasn't far away. And they're now reconstructing it. It's called Al-Jumail. Yeah, Okay, so we're going to go back to Doha, have a good meal. There are some fantastic restaurants. That's the Parisa restaurant in Doha. And next week we'll be going to the Emirates. And we're just going to be looking at two. There's 7 Emirates. We're going to be looking at Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Those are the 2 main Emirates. The following week, I'll be in Riverside. So we're going to skip 1 week. The last week, we're going to go to Oman. But you'll notice some themes that are constant for all these Gulf states. A lot of the history is very similar. Oil has made them all wealthy. And they tend to do a lot of building with that money.
Do they have manufacturing?
No, not that I know of.
Cars or anything?
No, you just buy it. I mean, just think, if you don't need your economy is oil. That's what your economy is. The question might be down the line, what happens if oil runs out? Well, from my understanding, they're really putting a lot of research into alternate forms of energy, because they have the money to do it. There are these cooling plants, the large solar panels in the desert, and so but I imagine it's an issue that they're trying to come to terms with.
Also, their national wealth funds, they're investing around the world too.
Oh yeah,
Line up the rest of the world.
If you follow English soccer, you'll know that a number of the big teams are owned by the Arab states. I think Manchester City, which is at the moment one of the top clubs in the world, is Middle Eastern money.
It's interesting. Most of these buildings have a lot of water around.
Yeah.
Fountains.
Yes.
And you don't think that the desert is having.
Yeah. Well, we know historically that what is the Sahara Desert was at one time a garden.
Yeah.
It was lush. Then, for a variety of reasons, climate change, etc., it's turned into desert. But underneath, there's still lots of water. There's still lots of water.
Well, even Palm Springs is
Yeah, Palm Springs, so they said, and that's why you could have 500 golf courses. How many? I think there are over 100 golf courses in Palm Springs. And most of them rely on that underground water.